Okay, we call this meeting to order 11:31. Before we get going with number 2, we are going to move number 8, 7 and 8 will become 4 and 5. Okay, if that's okay with everybody. Unless I have any objections, the agenda has been amended, and then everything else will fall in place. Okay, now we're ready for the invocation and pledges of allegiance.
We have Mr. Roger Campos, who's going to lead us in both of those prayers.
Welcome, everybody. We are thankful for this day that you have given us, for its blessings, its opportunities, and its challenges. May we appreciate and use each day that comes to us. We pray for strength and guidance for each day as it comes, for each day's duties, for each day's problems. May we be challenged to give our best always, and may we be assured of your presence with us. Amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Mr. Campos.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, any public comments, Mr. Romero?
No, sir.
No, sir. Okay. Now we'll go into item, what is now, I guess I should have switched, 8 is now 4. Okay, we're going to go into closed session, is the bottom line. As permitted by sections 551.001 through 551.146 of the Texas Government Code, the Opens Meeting Law, we will go into closed session at 11:33. Call this meeting back into order at 11:50. And we'll go to the item, which I believe is 5 now, on superintendent's recommendations.
I move that we approve the superintendent's recommendation on personnel.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We now have an action item to consider approval of existing HVAC ductwork repairs and balancing for Creewall Road and Elm Creek Elementary Schools.
Yes, sir. With me, I got Mr. Barajas. He's going to bring this item to the board. We took it to subcommittee. If you remember in our bond project, part of our elementary AC gym retrofits, we also added 2 schools to be re-roofed and have HVACs replaced. Creewell and Elm Creek were those schools specifically. So it was a one-for-one item, switch out an old HVAC for a new HVAC so it will become more efficient. Through that process, we found out that there's another part of the system that needs to be looked at, which is how we return outside air and inside air into the building. Creewald, especially Elm Creek 2, has been facing a lot of humidity issues with that. And so to fix that, we need to replace some dampers that are part of that system and then have it balanced. And so we're having a third-party group besides the contractor that had nothing to do with FA Nunley, but it has more to do with existing dampers and getting it balanced so that we have the right amount of outside air coming in. This also makes the building more efficient, and it keeps the humidity out of it. And at the same time, it allows for good flow in of air for air quality. And so both schools, especially Creewald, especially during the rainy season when it's high humidity, has seen issues with mildew and things like that. So this will be a fix to make sure we permanently have the system working to the maximum performance. And so just let Rafael give you the price, and this will be funded with bond funds to finish that project.
Yes, sir. Like Mr. Chris stated, LPA and Alderson Engineers, together with Southwest staff, created a scope to do the balancing and the repair of the dampers. We will be using Airstream Heating and AC. They're part of our pre-approved maintenance contractor, and their proposal has come in an amount not to exceed $215,000 that will be funded by 2018 bond fund savings. A recommendation is that the board approve the existing HVAC ductwork repairs and balancing for Crewell that's presented.
I move. Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Consider approval of the 2021-2022 After-School Challenge Program.
Yes, we do have an agreement that we would like for the board to approve, and this agreement is with the City of San Antonio, with the Department of Human Service. And here we have our Community Education Department who oversees the program, which is the After School Challenge Program. We do have 8 elementaries that participate. It is based on family size, income, and then how many children participate per family. So we're just asking for the board to approve this agreement with City of San Antonio.
I move.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any discussion?
And this is only for the schools that are within city limits, right? Or is there
Yes.
more?
It's for 8 of our 11 elementaries, and 2 elementaries do Y Care, and Elm Creek kind of does their own kind of after-school program.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Now we will go into items of information, beginning with item A, debrief of trustee election.
So I know this is an item that's been the interest of the board, and we put on the agenda. Mr. Chris, who is our point of contact, our election liaison with Bear County, will provide some background and some data from past elections and policy, and then we'll open it up if we can answer some questions, and we will. And if we're just gathering information to try to find answers, we can also do that as well. So I'll turn it over to Brandon, and he'll do this presentation.
Okay. So I'll start off, kind of the items I'm going to cover today. First, we'll start with our local policy, BBB. It's really short. The other part of the policy, if you want to visit and kind of see what we have to do as a district and what are some of the laws that are guiding us as far as what the order should look like, that's all going to be in legal. So for today, I'm just going to share with us BBB, local policy, and then I'm going to talk about the timeline, some of the expectations that have to be met to get to May and have the actual election. Briefly talk about joint election and what that means. Also about what conducting an election and how we have to go about contracting that out, whatever decision we make, so that we can separate the two and understand the difference. And then also with you in your packets, I put on there our results of our May election. Also put the results from the city elections and all the other school districts. That's the data I could pull off the Bear County elections page, and then kind of just briefly talk about the options that we have, which is really the city of Lidle versus the Bear County election. And so that's where I'm going to start with the really board policy. Really our local policy, it tells us what kind of election, what kind of board we will have a makeup of, and how many years in terms of it will serve. So when we will have an election, the method of the election, is it at large or by sections? The actual election date, which the board always chooses May. Remember, we had a November election based on because of COVID, and it got postponed, but our elections run every May. And then also in our local policy, it has the terms that in legal, you can choose 3 to 4 years, and the board in time has chosen 3-year terms. And then we have to lay out when those terms are up and how long those intervals are. And then how basically the method of voting, how do you win the elections based on plurality? Basically, the person with the most votes wins the election. And it also depends on how many people are running. And so that's BBB local. Like I said, the legal portion of that, which is more of the law, you can look that up. It's about 9 pages. It's the way we have to conduct our elections. I am the liaison with Bear County in conducting the elections. Also, I'm the person that will go to the meetings. Let's say it's at the city of Lidle to ask their governors to allow us to have a joint election with them. And the same thing with the county. Mary is also a liaison. We will be going to, in December, there is a election seminar that we have to attend where we kind of get more update, because every year there's a legislative session. We like to go to make sure that we're in compliance. And we also get TASB, who helps us update the legal, and if anything in local is out of balance with what legal has been pushed out by the law, then we have to make those changes and we have to inform you on those. A lot of times it's really not, a lot of those laws don't impact school districts as much as it impacts other jurisdictions like municipalities and like redistricting and things like that. So the election calendar is is a work in progress. We have specific dates that are already set forth by the state of Texas on the election calendars. And so we've fixed it so that you can know on December 20th is the deadline to post a notice for candidates to file. So on December 20th, we'll have it posted on our website. I'm actually out here in the front office. The first day to apply for ballot by mail is January 1st. The January 10th is the Lytle City Council that I go to every year to ask the council members and the city of Lytle to allow us to be a part of their joint election. That is a precursor for me to bring it to our school board in January to ask the board to approve us being part of that joint election. That's the timeline that they put forth for us. If I go to the city council and ask them to be a part of their election and they approve it, I come to the school board in January and the board says, no, we want to do something different. It doesn't lock us in or anything like that. But I need to be at that meeting in January to make sure that we can be part of their joint election. After that, it's really up to us to start determining which way direction we're going to go. And then first day to file for a place on the election ballot, January 19th. I'm not going to go through every single one, but the most important are probably January 19th through February 18th is the first and last day to actually apply for school board. And February 18th is the last day for the district to order the election through a school board vote. And then there's some stuff that we need to do as, like getting the orders of names on the ballots and how that, and the drawing. There's a date for that on here. And then the last day to register for vote for our voters is April 7th. And then the first day of early voting will be April 25th. And then working with, our elections, group that conducts our elections, trying to figure out a good timeline on when we're going to run, what days, and how long late we'll stay open. That gets determined as we get closer. And then obviously the last day, May 3rd is the last day for early voting, and this year the election's on May 7th. We open from 7 to 7. In previous years, there's a certain window that you have to canvass the votes, and I think last year our election was like May 1st, May 2nd, and we couldn't get to the school board meeting to actually canvass the votes, but there's enough time since it's in May 7th. I think it's almost 10 days that you have to get a canvass, but we should be able to take the election canvass to the actual school board meeting this year because of the timeline. And the actual May 7th, that Saturday, is a little bit later than it was last year and the previous year. So that's the election calendar. Any questions on that aspect?
I have a question. What is the earliest date that we as a board can vote on whether to go with Bear County or Lytle?
Well, I mean, the earliest date is, because that's going to be up to us, so the school board, so that could be depending on.
So theoretically, we could vote on this in the general election for this month?
Correct.
Okay.
And all the way up to, I would say the deadline for, I would say, Bear County last year, because it was a huge city election, they were a little more flexible if we wanted to wait a little later, but we got to a point where it was like, I think the end of February, where they're saying like, you're either with us or you're not. The city of Lytle really likes us they want to know early on. And so January's kind of in their time.
Right.
But either way, if I go to the city of Lytle, it doesn't mean we have to decide by then. I just get it to like a formality for me.
Right.
To ask them, and they say yes, and then I come to y'all. So that's kind of been the process. Really, anytime up from here to probably, I would say, the end of February, we need to have a decision,
Right.
especially for Bear County.
And when did we decide last year?
January.
But when did we vote?
I would say we voted at the.
March?
No, I think it was probably. I usually take it in January. I'd have to go back and look. I don't want to lie to you. 'Cause
Okay.
I know that we had options. I have to look to see when we actually voted. Because I know that I went to the city of Lytle on January 10th, and then our history is to bring it to the January board meeting for approval.
But that didn't happen last year, right?
I think that we had to look into the options, and I think we did vote on it, but then we were trying to work with Bear County to give us more early voting. Let me look first.
I think it got delayed because
Maybe we
Bear
voted
County
on it
was
now,
going back and forth on,
Mm-hmm.
how many sites they were gonna give us,
Well, I should be able to pull it and tell us for sure.
Well, but what ended up happening is that the time was very crunched, and so for the candidates as well as, even notifying our community about
We got different
when
answers
and
from
where
them.
and how.
So,
So really, for us, if we think about it as an elected board, for us, the earliest that we can get it done is the best. Is the,
absolutely. And
you
I
know,
think it's best for the whole.
Everybody.
Everybody, so
the soonest, I
The
should
plan
say.
would be to still, historically, as long as we're done by January, deciding what we're doing, there's gonna be two options, the city of Lytle or Door County. And the difference last year, I think the thing that was drawn out the most is, you know, trying to get more sites from Door County, to them to actually give us more early voting sites, or once we decided to go with the city of Lytle.
Right.
And working with them, because they're the ones that, they don't drag their feet, but they have to meet the needs of everybody that's in the election.
But there's no reason that we can't do it in October or November,
Well,
so that people know what,
Yeah.
right? And just for transparency's sake, and for, you know, full disclosure, like if, you know, if we decide to go with Lidl, say, in October, then I would want to be able to communicate to our community every day that, you know, what this means for them as voters, and, you know, where and how they're gonna access. Because I think as school board members, that would be my number one priority. As soon as we make a decision, and if we end up going with Lidl, I would want to communicate with them every single day until the election about where and how and when.
I approved BBTA legal, I did leave it 78 days. I don't know if you have to do it 78 days before election day,
Yes.
or.
I'll have to double check. I don't think it matters for joint election, it does for the order. So the order, when you order the election, is when, that's the timeline that you have to create a partnership, make sure that you have a joint election. I'll make sure, I'll have to look up the legalities of it.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm just going off of practice in the past, trying to make a decision in January.
And I know
So
I'm
that-
only one board member, but I'm just want to say that I'm really, really going to press hard for us to make this decision as soon as possible in the best interests of this entire community, so that we can then turn around and inform everybody of how, when, where, and how, right? So, if there's no, what I'm asking is there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to vote for this in October.
And I will double check, I'll look through the, just legalities of
Yeah.
it and make sure that there's no,
Mhm.
if there's a reason.
It's
or
up
if
to
there's
us,
not,
right.
I'll inform the board and make sure the board knows this is what we can do now, what we can't do. I know we can't order the election until a certain window,
Right,
but that's.
but we
ordering
can
the
vote well in advance of that.
election for the joint election. The joint election is forming a partnership, whether it's with a municipality, a city.
Correct.
Same thing, hospital district or college district,
Mhm.
to actually host an election together. That's the part where I can see if there's any timelines tied to that.
Yeah.
Is there,
And- Go ahead, sir, go
Is
ahead.
there any timelines that we would need to have so that way if we needed to get extra voting sites, for our areas? I mean, that was one of the key things that happened, actually, we couldn't get the extra voting site in relevance to having it with Lido versus having it with Bear County when we would have had more sites everywhere versus, and even then, right now, I know that Bear County is fighting to get us more sites in our district as well.
Yeah. I think that, so working with Bear County, so I guess I'll start with conducting the elections. So we're going to contract Bear County to run our elections, whether we're with joint election with Lytle or we're part of the county election. Whatever that determined is, either way, we're gonna be subject to what Bear County can offer us as far as workers, places. They want us to be a part of theirs because then they can tell our voters they have to go somewhere else to vote because they have more sites, right? Within our boundaries, we're gonna be subject to how big their election is, how many workers they can assemble, and, you know, what's best for the overall elections for everyone. So what we ran into was, it was a mayor's race, and they were trying to accommodate every school district that's in it, the city council races, the mayor race, and then other little city municipalities that had races. And so, I mean, it's about a workforce for them, and then what they can really do for our district. And so as we went on, we asked for more, and they were able to accommodate what they accommodated, adding, we'll call it, and even then, we even offered to give them more sites within our district so that we could have, but it wasn't in benefit of the other voting areas, like the other municipalities, the city, and so, because they have a map that's they're strategic to make sure they can hit big pockets of population, and that's what we ran into.
But ultimately, Bear County offered way more sites than Lidle at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, they
Is
offer
that
all their
correct?
sites.
Right.
So that's the next slide, is so that, just comparing, last year and I put all county because it's been different. So like in November, it was 300 sites because it was the presidential election. That was, so this last time was less than 100. It just depends in the spring what voting's going on in the city and what people need. That's how many sites they'll have. They're not gonna have like we have for presidential, which they're gonna have tons of voters coming out. So I don't wanna put any numbers because it's changed, it's up and down. But it is all the county, that's why I put county there, all the county sites on voting day. And then for us, voting day sites, it's been back and forth. In November, they were able to give us our 5 sites that we had, because it was such a big election and they needed more sites. But previously, talking to them, they were gonna give us less if we were within our boundaries. Because on voting day, I know that Bob Hope and Sky Harbor, even in this previous election, were actually city sites for the city election. Central office, we would always have that, and we would offer that to them as well. But we could possibly do Sun Valley and Big Country just because of their location, because in the past, they would send those voters somewhere else. I know in our bond election, we didn't have those 2 years ago, or 2018, but we did have them in 2020 because of the presidential. And so this kind of gives you what it looks like, early voting, what that looks like, voting access, what you're going to see on your ballots at both sites. I know we have over 29,000 registered voters in our district, and then the number of voters in our election in the spring was 954. And then I also shared with you the city election results so that you can see comparisons of other neighboring districts, the city votes. And so really, we are required to have a joint election. It's the non-negotiable for priorities in our 2 options, for these 2 options. So,
And are we the only school district that's not with Bear County and associated with San Antonio?
I believe we are the only school district in Berry County that's not.
And I'd also like to remind us that in going with LIDO, we, voter suppress or disenfranchise to a large extent all our city voters, because then they have to go to 2 different sites, and it creates a burden, and we as a body, I don't think, because everybody knows where the Bexar County elections are going to be, where to go. There's a site. I think the school district we don't do as good of a job at putting our community on notice that there is an election coming on and where they can go and all these good things. But I don't think that our city voters were terribly aware of what it means when we vote to go with Lytle. And I just want to make sure that they understand the ramifications of this elected body voting to go with Lytle as opposed to with Bexar County. So, I mean, that work needs to start, I think, like yesterday. So I think, I'm going to push really, really hard for us to take that vote as soon as possible. And based on, what happens there, then we need to start taking action to inform our voters of what that means for them as soon as possible as well.
I also want to mention, because I know we talked about last year, so January 19th board meeting was the first time it came up. And I know that we brought it back as items even beyond that, because the question was about how many other early voting sites. So it was January 19th, 2021, the first time it came to the board.
But when did we vote?
January 19th.
We voted for Lytle?
Yeah, I think what the deal was, we approved the joint election for Brandon Kyoto, City of Lytle, they were requesting part of their joint election. And then we brought more information as we were talking with Bexar County, since that's who we contracted
Yes.
with, about getting more sites. So we brought more information at the brown bag and then again at the February meeting.
Well, because we were under the impression that it was going to be at the same sites for a couple of months. We thought that even though the voters had to access 2 voting machines, that they were going to be at the same site. And then that didn't actually happen, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that I would push for too, is to make sure that we said we're gonna give them 4 sites, 5 sites, when we voted on that, the B plan, or the plan that we went with was gonna add additional sites, and we only added 1 additional site plus the head office, central office.
But the only reason that happened, Pete, is because they did promise that they would be able to do it. And then they came back and said it's not possible. So our intention was to have the additional sites, but unfortunately, Bear County could not do it for us.
But ultimately, by voting to go with a Lidle joint election, we disenfranchised all of the city voters.
Well, I think the voters
All
that
of them.
vote for the school election come regardless of where it is. I
We
mean,
are
people that
just-
want to vote for us will come and
There are
vote.
29,000 voters, active voters in Southwest ISD, and we get 1,000 voters at the school election.
Well, and I don't think we
If
can compare
do it-
anything to
Yes,
an
we
election
can.
where we have the presidential election, because everybody goes out to vote, and they will vote
I'm not-
regardless.
I'm just saying that with the Bear County, that all the elections are on the same ballot, and the entire community gets the opportunity to vote when one trip as opposed to two.
If we went with the Bear County in May, if we at least will see what it can bring to the table in associating if we bring all the voters in at one time. If we can do it one time to see what it really brings at May, then we got something to put those numbers for. We really don't have those numbers. The only time we do have those numbers is when we did a bond at one time. And the bond, people came out for the bond, and it was during November, when we had the bond.
People came out because it was an election, a major election as well. It wasn't just the bond.
Going with Lidle is a classic strategy to disenfranchise and voter suppress. And this body has voted to do that in the past, and I think it's time that we move on from there.
Well, this body includes you, because
And that-
we've done it
yes,
for the
does.
last 14 years.
I said this body, that's.
Okay, I'm gonna just let you all know that at this time, we are getting information. It is not time for debate. Okay, the time for debate is the time of election, or the time of vote, the time that we decide on what we're going to do with the election, okay? If you want Brandon to continue with his presentation, and if you have questions for Brandon, we will continue to do so. If not, we will move on to the next item.
I think what we wanted to do was to give the information out to the board. We are the facilitator of the process, and we'll try to gather information, answer questions. Some questions are pretty encompassing, of doing TPIAs and trying to do cross-reference of thousands of addresses. So if there are questions to follow up, to bring back information, we'll definitely connect with your county elections. We'll request that information, we'll bring it back to the board so you guys can make an informed decision. That's our role in this whole process. So, we want to honor what this collective body wants us to do, and we'll work from there, and we'll do our due diligence to bring the information where we can find it to the board.
And I'd just like to bring up that Brandon had mentioned that at this point in time, he was unable to pinpoint the number of city voters that are also Southwest ISD voters. And that's a number that I think is important that we know. But at this point, he's not able to access that information. So he said he's going to try to get that from somebody.
I'll talk to Bear County and see what the process is, because I mean, at the end of the day, it would be an open record request probably to figure out
Right.
what I'm actually asking for.
Right, you just ask them for it and they figure out how they're gonna give you that information, correct? Okay. Oh, so then anyone can do that?
Yes, I mean, it would just like doing an open records request at Bear County, just like we would do to Southwest ISD.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
That's it. That's all the information we have.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Teacher retention and resilience data? Who's,
So we started a program about 3.5 years ago where we were looking at how we can change the trajectory of young teachers leaving the district or leaving the profession of teaching. And so I have with me today Dr. Sarah McCandless, and she's going to talk to you about how this innovative program and the data that we have collected from the last 3 years about our new teacher mentoring and retention program.
Yeah, before Dr. McAndrew goes, I do want to preface a little bit of this. So Dr. McAndrew is fixing to be probably the most popular person in Bear County. We've been having conversations as Bear County superintendents, and specifically this last month, the conversation really stemmed around our lack of all of us being 100% employed. So all of us, all ISDs, and throughout Texas and the nation, we are all missing employees. And so we have really engaged in a pretty wholesome conversation around how do we create the next generation of educators, but more importantly, how do we stop that off-ramp when we do get educators from college and they exit early on in their career, because we know the research says if we can keep someone 5 years, we increase the probability they stay 10, 15, 20, and beyond. And we know if we don't keep them 5 years. So what Dr. McAndrew, Sarah, has done over the course of the last 3 years, starting fourth year now, this school year, this is pre-pandemic work because we knew it was an issue then, but it's really times 10, times 100 today. And so we're in a different position, and she has really been a steward and a shepherd and a beacon of light for our first year to education teachers in our system for the last 3 years in keeping that connection. And I actually shared her presentation with Region 20, and she will be we put together a task force that's north side, southwest, east central, I think Edgewood, and then some other nonprofit partners and industry partners to come up with a solution. She will be our first guest speaker to show the retention side, how important it is to form a relationship, a connection, a supporting network around new young folks to education, not even young, new folks to education, and what a difference that makes. And so I built you up, Sarah, and so it's all yours.
No pressure. Thank you. President's office, members of the board, senior staff, and of course, officers. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I do this like one time a year. But there are some of you who are more familiar with what we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years. So if there are any questions, be sure to interrupt me. Like Dr. Burson said, we've had 3 years. We didn't know during the 3 years there would be a pandemic. That's the kicker, right? I'm not going to read this to you, but we started with the idea that coaching this kind of brand new teacher is the art of creating an environment through conversation through which they can move toward their own goals and their desired goals to see if they're in the right place. I think you'll remember that we began with the personal experience and the vision of Dr. Burson himself. And then we added a support structure for talent management. I'll be honest with you, and I wish you'd ask people. I keep saying this. I have asked and asked and asked. But I cannot find a similar position like mine or a program in any school or district across this state or nation. So if you find that, we want to know because we want to share it with them. It basically embraces a year-long approach with monthly face-to-face 45-minute meetings with each participant. And that's my work. That's what I do every year. The meetings begin with a personal interview, move to the selection of a leadership attribute, and talking about the shield that Southwest created, the leadership shield. And finally, we culminate in this study of wellness based on the work of Dr. Laurie Santos from Yale University. So, in our very first, remember when we got that first cohort? And there was a recommendation at that time that we limit the number to 30. But Dr. Burson agreed with me. We decided there were 52 brand new teachers to teach it. Now, who in the world do you leave out? Nobody. So we started with 52. They picked growth as the area and that they wanted to work with. Those returning after that year were 49. 3 teachers left, and that leaves a percentage of 94.2. So that Dr. Burson in this report, by the way, wanted what happened after the first year, because that's kind of a big, well, it would be if it weren't for the pandemic, right? And then he wanted to look at it over time. So that was our first year. Remember that we gave that online survey that Jesse helped us create. We gave it, I think, in January. It's kind of early in the year, but we gave it. I'm not going to read it to you. But basically, we had, by that time, I think 4 months had gone by. So 94% of them had had 4 or more sessions. Remember, because I watched this ad carefully, that we add teachers through the year. The sessions, how many of them were face-to-face? Almost 100%. Did you feel that they would benefit from more face-to-face? I always look at the definitely and probably yes answers, okay? So that's like 76 said yes, they like to have more. They always want more, you know that. I mean, you know. Do you feel the sessions provided to support? And again, 78, almost 80% said definitely and probably yes. Do you feel the sessions helped you as an educator? There our numbers are getting a little bit bigger, 82 with the yes and probably yes. This was interesting. This was Jesse's question, not mine. I really didn't think about it, but I was surprised at their answer. Do you feel the sessions increased your knowledge of that concept of leadership, that shield? And there, that popped up to almost 90. Somehow, that really helped them. They were happy. They were very pleased that we were looking at leadership with beginning teachers, I think, and they wanted to know. Did they help you understand how to build optimism and resilience? Now, that was the part of the shield that I focused on, because it said very clearly, Southwest wants leaders who are optimistic and resilient, hopeful, and they don't give up. Ergo, they don't quit. But you know what I'm saying there. So I liked that. And this one was different. Do you feel these sessions helped you communicate with the staff, the teachers, and administrators? They came across through with a 67% on the yes, and even a good-sized group, maybe no. Yeah, not sure. Do you feel like it was beneficial for teachers who are new to the classroom? That's the biggie, isn't it? And they came across with a good solid 93%. Really felt it was. Did you feel a similar program would benefit you in your second year? Well, of course. you know, so about 70 of them, said yes, we'd like it again, more support. And then others, maybe not. They really didn't know it was the first year that we did it. So there are things that I gave you the handout because I wanted to be sure that you could read it, and I'm not going to read the comments, but we have the quantitative for the first part, and then the qualitative comments taken straight from the teachers themselves that are in your handout. You're aware that when we finished this, we formed focus groups. We continued our data analysis. Thanks to Roger and his group, we filmed them all. We still have them, right? Archived. Okay. All right. We tried to carefully understand the lessons that we learned. But, I was able to write papers and design presentations on the project to a whole lot of different venues, right? But it was very clear that before we went with you all to TASB, I think we're going to try for that next year maybe, or to Midwinter, that to get 4 or 5 years of data. Now, that was assuming there would be we didn't know the pandemic was going to hit, but it did. But anyway. And I expanded the wellness initiative to as many audiences as possible. And it's, in my opinion, we're just talking about their opinion, the principles have just been grand. They've taken the wellness idea and you've seen it, I'm sure you've seen it with the people that you talk to. They've taken it down into classrooms. So here we go with Cohort 2. All right, so suddenly we have 56 brand new teachers to teaching. At the end of that year, 2 of them left, 54 stayed. But, in the middle of it, we had this variable that just changed all kinds of things. And that's the pandemic. And so, that's what we attributed things to. So we had to do some changes with the cohort. Remember that Cohort 2? That was the group that we left for spring break and we never came back. So, frankly, at the end of the year, I really didn't get to see them or talk to them, which is really key in the way teachers go, because at the end of the year is what you want to have, so we put them together. That was something you needed to know. Cohort 3, that group that we employed in last year, had 38 teachers, 3 left. I thought that was amazing. And 35 stayed for 92%. Understand, though, that last year, the cohorts were blended. We had almost 90 by the time it all came around. Then remember, there was the ice storm. remember all the things that happened. We went online, I went online. And that was one thing I asked them at the end of last year, do you prefer it online or face-to-face? And they want the face-to-face, and so we're back to face-to-face. The principals of it, that didn't make so here we are. Okay, so here's the overtime that I want you to see. We have 3 cohorts, and we are now starting with cohort 4. Basically, for that first cohort, we started with 52. We lost 3, kept 49, lost 1, kept 48, lost 2 for 46, which is a 96% overtime. But a 94%, remember, for the first year. Cohort 2, 56 began, lost 53, and then we lost another 4 with the pandemic and went to 88%. But for the first year, we did have the 95%. And our last cohort, 38. We're so courageous, right? 38, only 3 left. We retained 35, 92%. So over time, when you go back looking at what was left, we had 46, 49, and 35, which comes to 130 out of 145. So we are sitting at a 90% retention rate. I'm very proud of all of them. And you all know that this is not about me. It is just as much about the principals and the encouragement from this district. Presently, though, we're back up with our enrolling teachers new to teaching, and we just hired 2 more. When I'm out on campuses right now. We returned to face-to-face. I've completed all the first conferences, and in another week and a half, I'll have the second conferences completed, where that's the introductory and where they pick the leadership that they want to work with, the characteristics. So just so you know, that's a summary up there for you. You've seen it. We just talked about it. But here's what I want you to know. Everything from after that first business about Southwest comes from a national report. I was scraping the internet and I printed it all, and I can certainly get it to you. And I know you read the Express News articles in the last few days about the real problems that are out there that are very serious. But teachers leaving the profession or moving to other schools in 2019 really was 16 plus to 20-something%. Teachers leaving the profession within the first 5 years, 50%. 50%. Teachers reporting the probability of leaving within the next 5 years went from 24 to 30% in March 2021. But you know, looking over, they talked to 1,200 districts, all right? 75% of them have teacher shortage. That's the urban. In the suburban, 60%. Across all settings, 44%, up from 34%. Those numbers are people. I mean, a lot of people who have been dedicated to this work. And it's not just for the teachers, the substitutes are another shortage, 67%. So, our conclusion, my conclusion, Dr. Versus, I hope senior staff, is that with a retention rate over time of 90%, the promise remains strong and stable for the Southwest program. It's innovative and it is intensively personalized for teachers new to teaching in our district. So we worked hard, and so have the teachers, and they've been so courageous. So, questions?
Sarah, I know that it's difficult to answer this question considering the pandemic came through and it made things a little bit more difficult for our teachers, especially those that were new. However, of the ones that did resign and left, do you have any idea, or did you meet with them to find out what exactly they were not happy with, or what the reasons were for them leaving?
Well, no, that's an excellent question, because keeping up with that data person to person is my own little personal goal. So I have extensive lists, but you know it varies when you can get the names of them, because there's an early, there's an early resigning, and then there's later resigning, and then there's even later resigning, and then we just need more people, you know, based on our programs and our kids. When you look at those folks, to tell you the truth, there are a lot of variables. Remember in the first year, I think we lost 2, and I believe their husbands were in the military. I mean, they had no control over that. They were absolutely displaced. I'm not gonna fudge with you. Two or three of those people, teaching was not meant for them. You know, I don't interfere with administrative decisions or anything like that, and that was just not where they wanted to be, where they needed to be. There were some, though, that they just moved. I didn't. Now, do you tell Sarah McAndrew what she wants to hear? Okay. None of the teachers framed their leaving as a problem with the district or a problem with people in the district. In fact, of course, they could hardly say anything because they had so much extra support. And you know what? Now they have even more support on the campuses, I think. They have such support from the principals. I mean, it's like, come in, Sarah, sit down. We're so glad to have you, have our folks. Here's a new one coming in. Let us know. But it seems there's a sensitivity now among the teachers themselves. Maybe we all forgot what it was like to be a new teacher. I'll be honest with you. I tell them honestly, I've forgotten. And so we built this curriculum together. You know, they're the ones who said, help us find a way to get through this year. And then we found this study from Yale. But I can't tell you, I'm really proud of the teachers right now. I cannot tell you what these kids are like in school. I never taught or worked in a system where the kids are gone for a year and a half. First, they got to learn school again. You know, particularly the little ones, like my grandchildren. And the teachers are the same way. And so they've accepted the challenge today. You know, but once we get to Thanksgiving, you're kind of.
So we've always had programs like Teacher Buddies and things like that to put support around teachers. The difference here is that on the personal mastery, those conversations are about how do we help you become a better teacher? And there's always going to be a short percentage of folks leaving because of mobility, and some of them because they're just, we know this generation, they move around from job to job. The idea is to give them a lifeline to stay in education more, so they choose education. Whenever we do something like this, we always look at the return on an investment. And I'm going to tell you, the return on this investment, and now that we get to share with other Bexar County ISDs, I know the Executive Director, Region 20, Jeff Goldhorn, and I were engaged in a long conversation around this work. He actually did his dissertation around teacher retention, and he said the best numbers he ever saw was at 75% over a 3-year period staying. So I think we have kind of a baseline. There's research out there and data that says the return, not to have to train new folks up, because we know a teacher after year 3 is a different teacher than they were in year 1. And that's anything we do, right? So I want to commend Sarah. I think her focus on the individual and just her ability to be an easy person to talk with. And I know I've heard personal testimony from a new teacher to education this year who really talked about what a difference it made to have someone to talk about them, about resiliency, about remaining optimistic during this time of where that's not encouraged too much anymore. So yeah, great job, Sarah, and I think this is a great thing that we can share outside of Southwest that'll benefit Bexar County and San Antonio and Texas for that matter.
And I'd like to just make a comment. I know that when you started this, we did not know what was coming down the pike, right? And I think it is like, you know, without knowing, this got set up and has made a difference in the last couple of years, a tremendous difference. Otherwise, these numbers would be a lot higher, and we would be struggling more to hire to fill the slots. And these young people that are coming into the profession, I mean, I cannot even imagine what it's been like for them to come into this profession in the last year and a half, and having that support has become just so much more critical. So we appreciate this work even more than we did a few years ago, right?
Thank you, Sarah. I would not believe that anyone that would meet with you would want to leave, honestly. There's just no way.
It's an honor, it is an honor.
Ma'am, do we ever find out when they talk to you, if it's not just a venue, because like we get, like say they've been there for a couple of years, and they say, well, I need to change the venue, I just need to get, from one place to another place, that way I get because some people are more meant to not stay there for the rest, they leave because I don't want to stay here for the rest of my life. Is it sometimes because of wanting to leave the venue or just getting to another venue so they can open up their eyes to see it's pretty much going to be either another better experience or the experience is going to be the same?
That's a really good question. One that I can add now, I think, to my questions, when the end of the year comes, I'm open with them. They know I'm not their supervisor. They know that I'm not gonna go tell the principal, I'm not gonna tell anybody, frankly. And so, they're pretty open. But I'm also, from the beginning, very straightforward about that we're so glad you're here. We're gonna do everything in the world to support you and provide that, but we want you to stay. Are you going to stay? That may not be a question asked all the time by other people, but I'm gonna think about what you said.
Yeah, because I would like to know, like, how can we benefit, like, not to lose them, but to figure out how we could, like, hey, is there something we could do to keep you happy to stay here? You know, like.
Oh, you're right about that. You're right about that. Absolutely.
Another environment.
I don't think I asked it like that, but there's a lot of research. Southwest has always, since I've been here, because I came from another district, and of course I've been here, I've stayed here for 8 years or whatever, so I'm happy with that. But Southwest has a very teacher-friendly, educator-friendly kind of way they do business. Not just their salaries, but even the timing of the paycheck. And there are a lot of things that I could say about the way that we do things that other districts don't, but I'm gonna use your question.
No problem, man.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay. Debrief of TASB conference.
Yes, sir. So I know, you all have
Have the opportunity to, once again, go back to the TASB convention and the breakout sessions. And I know I've had different sidebars with individual attendees about things that we saw, things that we want to know more about. And so I thought this would be a really great forum. This is our work session. And not only in that area, but we also talked about just creating a forum so folks can bring up any idea they may be thinking about, what more information on. And so I wanted to create that opportunity here today to just open it up. I know that working with CNI, a couple of the items that we actually saw at the TASB breakout convention, one was called the Penguin Project, which is a program that works with our special needs and a gen ed student mentor, and they have a performance that the culminating act is a performance on stage at the end of the year. There's a lot more that goes into that along the way. Corsicana ISD, so we've already reached out and we have a site visit planned there in 2 weeks to get more information, to actually see the program on the ground, to get some Q&A and then come back and replicate it. Corsicana is the only ISD in Texas actually doing the Penguin Project, but I'm going to tell you, if you had a chance to go to their breakout session, it was pretty compelling and a huge benefit to our students. There is another one that we are currently working on with CNI, CNI is leading, and that has to do with creating more work-based programs and work-based coaches to help matriculate our students of special needs who need that support and that work coaching in order to transition into the workforce. And what does that look like, and how can we partner with other industries to create badging and provide students an opportunity to get a form of credentialing and therefore be in a different position. So we've had 2 meetings on that, and we're fixing to bring in industry partners and also get their input and some of our nonprofits who work in that arena. So those are two things I know that are different today from our opportunity to go out and learn what's going on out in the state of Texas. So I just like to open it up to board members right there. Is there something you see? I know Daniel went to esports, and I know that's something that we
There's
have
a couple
big.
things I went to. Definitely so you guys know me and Dr. Verstuff, along with Mr. Barcinez and a few other folks here in the district. We've been working with SAMSAT, Port SA, Texas A&M San Antonio, and a bunch of other industry leaders and school districts working on the esports program, because we found that we have kids signing, you know, like my sons and a couple other folks have assigned esports scholarships. This is another way that we can possibly reach out to other kids, and there's a lot of things we can do within the esports that it's not just the kids playing video games. It's all your CTE programs that attach to it, and the session I attended was basically the folks up near Dallas. It's not just Dallas ISD, but I talked to the lady. Basically, where we're at, they're 5 years down the road, and the benefits of what they showed us is what we're trying to do here in San Antonio. Because we're not trying to do this. We talked about it as, you know, first off, what can we do for Southwest ISD, our kids? But the more we talked about it, was like, well, so many ISDs here in San Antonio that are having their esports small teams. Why don't we just create our own league? Because the bad thing about playing, there's online sites we can register our kids, but some of those sites are like, you're paying $30 to $60 a pop for each kid to play, which if you're small teams, that's fine. But I can tell you, just from the very first meeting that Legacy had, they had 45 kids show up. So, and the great thing about this program is we want to reach kids that normally wouldn't come out to do sports, and other kids. And 2 were maybe sports athletes and 2 were band players. And the rest were kids that you would have never got that wanted to attend a thing for school. But the Dallas one, they started this program about 5 years down the road, and they did it because it is entirely free. So everything they do is entirely free. They gave us a great bunch of ideas of like college nights, college days where we invite college, kind of like our cafe college days where we set up booths and they tell kids. Well, we do the same thing, but we also host like a small tournament. So then those people are bringing also their esports teams. They can see what's going on. They can let them know about different colleges. And then if they see any of our kids that they like, then they can move them on. And they've seen tons of kids go to all kinds of states with that. And so we're definitely in the beginning stages of that here in the district, but that session was great. Obviously, the beginning of it was kind of just explaining to people what esports was. But towards the end, where it got kind of a little more detailed, they gave us some ideas, and I've already kind of passed those along to Mr. Barcinez. So I sat down with him as soon as I got back and passed along those notes, and I think he's already getting in contact with those people, seeing what they can do for us, because they actually have the whole classroom projects and the way it forms the CTE and everything. Because, like I said, you could host your own tournament. You have your culinary arts; they come in and do all the food and learn how to host an event. You have your cybersecurity that works on your computers. You know, everything. Our kids are already designing the logos and everything. We didn't send out for those. The kids are actually designing all that stuff themselves. So there's a lot involved with it, but definitely that was one of the sessions. One of the other sessions that I went to, I can't remember the name, but they were talking. It was about like teacher burnout, and so one of the things that they did address that I kind of have heard a little bit. So our aides, and what they've seen is teachers a little bit taking advantage of some of the aides, because our aides don't get, for the most part, conferences because they're filling in, they're helping it out. Well, we're setting all these programs. I'm just saying we, as this is what they were talking about in the class. We set all these programs to help out our teachers, and the teachers that feel burned out snag these aides, and we're not doing nothing for these aides, and these aides are the ones that are leaving because obviously they don't get paid as much as the teachers, but they're in there just as much as the teachers, working with so many kids. And then they turn around because they're being pulled here and there. They're missing lunch periods. They're missing everything else. And by the end of the day, they're just as burnt. So They talked a little bit about teachers, burnout, but at the end, they were talking about not losing focus on everybody else that's working in the district. Making sure those aides and front office workers are also not getting pulled in every direction and not getting the help that they need also.
And I agree with you, Daniel. I was there with you at that session. It was a keynote address, and she has a book on burnout, and it was very informational, and I thought about that too. We need to have some type of program that that we can help these people that get burned out, you know, not just teachers, but not only frontline teachers that work with students, but those behind, you know, behind the desk, behind the front lines. So
I think overall, the theme this conference was the mental aspect affects for the last couple of years. And a lot of it was tuned into staff and supporting staff. But then I saw one session where it was focused on the student. You know, our students are being just as affected, if not more so. And the students is who we, you know, the bottom line, whether it's testing or whether it's ADA or whether it's how we reach them. But, a lot of them are not, we had our children that already had issues, okay? And they, you know, were identified, you know, most of them, not all of them. There's always one or two that slips through the fingers, and that's a whole nother conversation. But now we have kids that don't know who to reach out to or how to reach out. And so that was one of the sessions I saw. And then it's funny because I had just attended the MASBA conference 2 weeks prior, and there was a couple of sessions on that. And I'm working with Lloyd and Jesse and getting a couple of speakers, dynamic speakers. One was an actress in Freedom Riders. She's Puerto Rican, I believe, but she's just an awesome speaker, touches kids, and I'm, you know, we've always said, well, we can get them in front of this group or that group. Well, I think every one of our kids, because of what we're in right now and what we've gone through, every one of our kids needs to listen to something so that they know that, yes, we are paying attention to them. So that's one of the things we're working on. There's a couple of speakers.
April Hernandez Castillo.
April Hernandez Castillo. Thank you, Jesse. I know April, but
she was one of the students, right?
Huh?
She was one of the students.
Yes, yes, she was the main character of the students. Yeah, she's just, and she happens to be working with Roy Juarez, who we've had before and knows a lot of our kids. And they're both working together, and I mean, it just blew me away. But, and so we're like talking with them, and hopefully I told them, I don't know how, but we're gonna figure out a way to put them in front of, at minimum, every one of our high school students. It would be awesome to put them in front of all of our secondary kids, but at minimum, every one of our high school students. So I think, you know, new changes, you know, have to happen because of what we've been through in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I did notice a lot of social emotional type of support for students in a lot of the sessions. A lot of the districts were doing amazing things, but I felt very confident that we are doing just as much for our students as what I sat on and listened to at some of those sessions.
I think we're going to take the opportunity to apply to do at least 2 or 3 presentations at next year's TASA. One would be the work Dr. McAndrew is doing, and another would be at our social emotional, you know, I think we have something to share, and so we want to be part of those breakout sessions.
That's an excellent idea, Dr. Verstoft.
Yeah.
What I gathered from this TASB convention was a lot of mind-blowing stuff that we can bring to the table. I heard a lot of, like, people that were passing by were other board members, and they were saying, well, if it ain't broke, they would just walk by it. If it ain't broke, why fix it? You know, why try to, But when I walked by it, it was more to the aspect of saying, walk by it, look at it and see if it's something that can improve. And there was times when I walked with Dr. V and I asked him about the one where we're saving energy. He said he could save us $600,000 worth in energy expenses, and just to look into it. Or even to say right now our literacy scores are low. There was how to invite kids back into our libraries, making sure that the libraries are being more welcoming. I feel like there's other stuff to get more kids, students more interested back in literacy. That's where our numbers are low right now, where I think we need to focus our attentions to those kind of programs that can help us. There was also a lot of bullying prevention. There was like they said, overwhelming the teachers. There was a safe space for the teachers to vent. I think Edgewood ISD had a presentation, and they were relevant to having a safe space for teachers to vent and be able to express their concerns on how to get them mentally reset themselves. I think that was beneficial. Across the board, I just think it's not to I guess reinvent the wheel, but to make the wheel better. And that's where I feel like those things that we went to is just to make us better and do better for our students. And that's why I was mind blown by a lot of vendors and just bringing to the table. And I brought back some of the cards. I could give them to Dr. V so he could pass them down to our assistant superintendents, and so that way we can get on the ball of adding to our wheel and greasing it so it runs even smoother. That's what I got from it.
I want to make one last comment on what Daniel touched on, the esports that y'all are working on. I'm very excited that we're doing this because about 5 years ago, Yolanda and I went to this model conference where they talked a lot about gaming and how big and huge it was going to get, and it was going to be bring a lot to our students. And I'm seeing that now, and the fact that they're even issuing scholarships for esports is amazing. And, you know, at the time I thought, we're not going to do that right now. I mean, but here we are 5 years later, and it looks like it's taking off. So I'm very excited for that.
The UIL has been broaching that arena for a long time, and I think they're waiting for someone to take it and show it. Just like mariachis, the mariachi competition in Texas started at Southwest High School Auditorium.
Right.
And so I think it would be the same thing in esports. They're waiting for a group of districts to come together to put together a model with a private industry and others, and show them how it can be. And then I think it will be a UIL event here in the next 4 or 5 years.
Awesome.
One of the Dallas people we talked to are really interested on helping us get started. Because I said for right now, it's just them. There's no other, even the Linebarger people I talked to for Mission, and then the El Paso people. No other people trying to do this. So the minute we get San Antonio going, then now we have 2 major metropolitan areas that have it, and then we can start interacting, and then UIL finally takes it seriously, and then expands it. So.
But yeah, I just wanted to open it up and I want to hear. I know we go to these things and we see a lot of good things. So it's our job here in the district to take all that information and really focus in on 3 or 4 of them, so that we can get legs up underneath it and the benefit. What we look for, the bottom line, just like you guys, is what's the benefit to our students, and how do we implement this so that we don't have to go through the growing pains that someone else did before us. We can learn from them. Just like when we have folks in our district, we hope that they don't have to go through some of the growing pains that we had to experience with new programs. So if you think of anything that's specific to that you want us to ever look at, definitely, we meet as a senior staff every Tuesday morning, and that's where we bring up kind of the big rocks and have conversation about what we want to do. But
And I want to say that just as a statement that going to these things, you see how far we're already ahead of the game. And I just want to say that as Southwest, we're pretty much, for a small two high school district, we're pretty far ahead of the game to where we're ahead of ourselves and trying to get ahead of what's going to happen. And we're being very productive, very preventative.
There's a lot of things that, like we said from the first conference that I went to, I wish everybody in the district could see that we do or give and provide side that a lot of the other districts in the state don't do or charge you to do, so, yeah.
Ahead of the curve, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I just
I always try to stay ahead of the curve.
And by the way,
Saying that you can see the light at the end of the tunnel and just hope it's not a train.
yeah. By the way, Dr. Verstuff, I just want to say that I sat in on the penguin project that you were discussing, and I find it amazing. I can't wait to be able to do this for our students. It just brought chills when I sat there and listened to what some of the kids felt when they were involved in such a project. So I'm looking forward to this.
You bring up a good point. We need to document our journey. And so if I had to say, if we can do like one thing better all the time is document the journeys we go on, because sometimes we don't do that enough.
Okay.
And so we have an opportunity to really like demonstrate that with the Penguin Project. So we're excited about the opportunity, definitely.
Okay, Lloyd, time for one more thing.
Well, you have it in front of you, sir, so I don't have to go through every one of them. Jesse and company did a good job of putting all the events coming up. Just a reminder to all, I think I sent it out in email, but if I didn't, Medio Creek Elementary and Elm Creek Elementary have both been notified this past with the other two that we are train national Blue Ribbon schools in the future, and so we're excited about that opportunity. Does it the students were October the 12th at 9:30 in the morning, and they're going to meet with the principal, with Brandon. I'll do a greeting for them. They're doing a bond in May 2022, and they want to come over, look at the building, and they also want to have a conversation around how we distributed our CTE programming, what we duplicate, what were we able to duplicate, what are we doing. So helping a neighbor, they would do the same for us. So we'll be hosting them Tuesday, and I just wanted the board to have that information. Next week is the big week for the Fire and Armor Bowl. You have a list, poster like this that lays out a lot of events that take place that week, trying to create excitement around that. We do have a special surprise for the actual game that we're going to do for our communities at halftime, and so I don't want to divulge it here, but we are making plans to really celebrate that night. We expect over 8,000 people to attend that event. It's a well-attended Southwest community event, and so we look forward to that week. And no one loses that night; everyone wins, because Southwest, one way or the other, is going to win. No doubt.
I just wanted to pass along too, on the Saturday afterwards, they're doing a Titan tasting at Legacy. They've opened it up to the vendor, to the different programs in the school to come out, and it's $10, and you get tickets, and they'll give you a little, kind of in the format of the way the band does here at Southwest. They'll give you a little tasting, and then you can go and purchase more. They wanted to do that after the Friday night game, that way people can still come out, and there's another event to tie into.
Is that the 14th or
The 16th,
Saturday?
the Saturday after, from 12 to 3.
That's good, and I hope we have that on social media. If not, we'll definitely.
Yes,
get
it's,
it on there.
they were trying to finalize, we just had a meeting, or they had a meeting yesterday to finalize some of the pricing and what everything that was gonna go on. And the great thing is, what we're doing is, any program within the school or school district, they're not getting charged to run their booth. So like, just because we're talking esports wants to open a table, they can go open a table. If a group does come from outside, because we're opening this to everybody, then we'll charge them $25. But this is a way for another thing, kind of like the Dia de los Muertos thing that mariachis do. They invite a bunch of groups out to come out and get the community involved. There'll be a DJ and everything out there for a couple hours. And
A little festival?
yeah, a little festival, and then because also we have the Under Armour group that's going to be going on at the same time, and then football players get done with practice, and But it's open to everybody from the district and they're trying to get involved over there, so.
Very nice.
Is the name of the
Sounds
neighborhood out? Is that out, because I know Medio Creek was having something with the neighborhood, where the police come out.
National Night Out?
National Night Out, is this today?
I don't know if it's today.
Night Out is today.
It is?
We didn't get information on that. For Meadow Creek, but National Night Out is today.
So maybe some of the schools will be doing something, but it just depends on them, yeah.
We'll let our influencers, I'll make them aware that way they can push it out, if they are doing something, make sure.
Yeah.
Information out.
Well, a lot of times the neighborhoods are the ones that are
Yeah.
doing, because that's how it started,
That's
for
how it
neighborhoods to be out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
We're gonna close this meeting at 1:04.